Meer Awny. Did I say it right?
Got it.
Welcome, man. Where I wanted to start is I had a look on your Instagram and I was doing a bit of research. Your background, is it Kurdish?
Yes.
Where is that? Because I looked it up and it looked like it said like a region within Iraq. Is that correct?
Within a few different countries.
Yeah, okay.
Kurds are technically a minority, but there are potentially onwards of 60 million Kurdish people around the world.
Really?
There's a long history of the Kurds. So today you'll find Kurds in Iraq, like what you just mentioned, in Iran, borders of Syria and Turkey. We've never really had a republic, so we're not a country. If there was a country, it would be called Kurdistan. But there's a lot of political conflict in that area. That's always meant that we've never had our own land ownership, our own rights to our land, and those sorts of things. So there's a real deep, rich history there. You'll find that Kurdish people are very proud of who we are and where we come from and our traditions, because Kurds predate like Arab civilizations, and our ancient spirituality and call it religious beliefs predate, all of the monotheistic religions like Islam, Christianity, Judaism. So there's a rich history there, and that's who the Kurds are.
Would that be related closely, like in the traditions and everything, how long they've been on the land compared to like Indigenous Australians?
The history doesn't go back that far.
Yeah.
Because I know Aboriginal history is like potentially 50,000 years ago that there's traces of Aboriginals being here and the Indigenous people being here. For Kurdish people, when you trace back the history and like the DNA that they've done as well, it predates to like Sumerian age, like Mesopotamia, Babylonian times. So a long time ago, potentially 4,500 to 7,000 years ago is where the origins of that people group were. So deep history. That's why I have a red beard, because there's so much there's like an Indo-European migrations that happened in that area. And then there was obviously like the Persian Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Arab civilization that happened, the colonization there. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you look Arab, but like you can tell it's a different type of Arab.
Yeah. Well, I'm Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
Right. But in the Middle East, there's such a rich history in the Middle East, and unfortunately, I think it's one of the most beautiful parts of the world. But the politics has really ruined that, and people can't appreciate the food, the nature that's there, the mountains, the lakes. It's so nice there.
So Kurdish people, the region, is it like mountains?
Very mountainous.
Mountains, yeah.
We are in mountainous people by nature.
Yeah,
It's probably why I moved to the mountains and have a tendency to enjoy hiking and those sorts of things.
Have you been back there? Because you said you came here when you were 3.
Yeah.
Have you gone back at all?
Twice.
Twice, yeah.
But the last time I visited was when I was 12. So I'm definitely due for a visit. That was 20 years ago.
And you still got family there?
Majority of my family are there, as in like secondary. So my mum, dad, siblings are here in Australia, but my aunties, uncles, grandparents that are still alive are all over there.
Going back there and seeing the way that they live life compared to life here,
Yeah.
how does that shift your perspective on life itself?
Look, the last time I visited, I was 12. So my insights on how that shifted my perspective would be hard to answer now, because between me being a 12-year-old and a 32-year-old, my perspective has changed a lot, obviously. So I just remember back home, people are a lot nicer. The pace of living is a lot slower. There's more leisure time. It's very family and community oriented. People know people's names. You walk down to the local shop, get your bread, go get your meat. Everything's fresh. That's how I remember it from when I was 12. I think now there'd probably be a little bit more, globalization in that area, so there'd be more buildings and a little bit faster. But in saying that, it wouldn't be anything like, Western Sydney. So.
And I love that, having these conversations with people like yourself, and I have a Lebanese background. I've never been. I'd love to go back and connect back there. But a lot of these conversations is around how beautiful it is and how beautiful the people are, yet the mainstream media say how bad those areas, don't visit, all that kind of stuff. And it's so sad to see, because yes, there is a lot of negative that happens in those regions, but there's so much beauty within it as well.
Yeah, I agree. Mainstream media has a tendency of, showing one side of many stories. So if you speak to any Lebanese person, they'll tell you how beautiful the country is. Speak to anybody from Iraq, they'll tell you how beautiful Baghdad is. Speak to anyone from most South American countries, it's beautiful to visit there. So traveling is great. I think everybody should travel.
Definitely. And a lot of people see you as this high performance coach with ethos and the businesses that you run. I love to get to know you as a person. And what was your upbringing like? Were you a little shit, or what were you like?
I grew up in Auburn.
Yeah.
When my family migrated here, we lived in Auburn, Granville, Guildford. Those are the areas I
Yep.
grew up in. I think I was a good kid, but I ended up surrounding myself with the wrong crowd at a very young age. So I don't think I was ever a bad kid or a bad person. I was never malicious with things, but I just got caught up in the wrong crowd. So there was, petty crime, stealing, just being a nuisance on the streets, going to the wrong places, finding myself in the wrong environments and the wrong scenarios just by way of the people that I was associating with. I think I'm lucky in that I separated from those crowds at a younger age, and it didn't carry into my 20s. And so by the time that I was, 18, 19, I separated from that crowd and went down and studied. And I think sports had a big influence in that, because so much of my time was just focused on training and studying. But I think I was a bad kid. I definitely gave my mum some extra white hairs along the way.
As we all do.
Yeah,
As we
definitely.
all do. What sport did you play growing up?
I played just low-level soccer, football,
Yeah, okay.
Growing up. And then at 15, I started Muay Thai training and combat sports. And that's sort of the sports that I continue to be involved in ongoing. I never competed at a very high level as a combat sport athlete. But I competed just at an amateur level. But I took to the culture of combat sports and the people that I was meeting, and I found it really fun. And I think I deviated towards sports that were individual, where the onus was on me showing up. And if I look at how I am now, I see why that sort of sport appealed to me, because I do like doing things on my own terms and being the person that has to keep myself accountable. So that's probably why the combat sport shifted me away from soccer at the time.
Yeah, see, for myself, I was always team sport oriented, like
yeah.
growing up playing rugby and OzTag and all those team sports. And then now, as of this year, shifting into more solo sport. As I mentioned before, I'm training for amateur boxing fight, which
That's great.
I'm a lover, not a fighter. So it's been...
You can be both.
I know. And it's been a huge challenge. I had my first sparring session this week, actually. And being in a ring and actually copping hits, I'm like, oh, wow. But there's so much beauty in it that translates into day-to-day life. Like, you're copping hits, so being able to, in life, cop challenges that come your way, you're able to better deal with those challenges. And for you, from combat sport, what are some of those pivotal lessons that are translated into everyday life and business?
I think combat sports just humbles you. Even if you're doing jiu-jitsu as a 35-year-old male, you get to a jiu-jitsu class or a jiu-jitsu session, you roll around with a 17-year-old and you're getting choked out. So I think it just breaks the barriers of any ego, especially when you're involved in combat sports. So for me, martial arts training, combat sports training, I've always respected the work that goes into it, as I do with all athletes, but specifically talking on combat sports, I think that there's a difference when you're getting punched in the face compared to another sport. I think the consequences of combat sports are just different. I'm not saying they're harder or they're better or they're worse. They're just different. And I think unless you've experienced what it's like to get punched in the mouth, choked out, kicked in the head, taste your own blood, it's a very interesting person that's appealed towards that sort of a lifestyle. So for me, it's taught me to check myself, to be humble, try to leave my ego. Although being a male and being in a Western world, ego does always surface itself. But those are the key things I think martial arts has taught me about respecting others, hard work, and being humble and not having a big ego.
I feel like in a way, as a man, it's a bit of a rite of passage to get in there, to put yourself in combat, to cop some hits, and it's like that transition from boy to man. Like, you've got to go through that. And I think it's pivotal that every young male do some sort of combat sport. And you train a lot of athletes and a lot of young athletes too. And you would see the development from when they first started as a teenager to then them growing through, and all the skills and how they grow as a person. I think it's so pivotal to put yourself through that.
I think my opinion is that definitely all kids should do some sort of self-defense or martial arts. Not because that you want them to be ready to defend themselves, even though that is a nice confidence booster for a young female or a young male growing up. But I do think it's because of all the lessons that you can learn through martial arts as a young person, as a young kid growing up. So whether it's a young daughter that you have or a young son that you have, I do think sports like, you know, jiu-jitsu and some of the traditional martial arts like karate, kyokushin, they're nice. There are a lot of nice teachings that can come out of a sport like that, because martial arts, first and foremost, it wasn't a sport, it was a way of life. So that way of life can teach people a lot of valuable lessons.
And I think, like the saying of, you would rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Correct.
That sets young
Yeah.
males up to, like, if something does happen,
Yeah.
you're prepared for it.
Definitely. And the reality is that these days it's important that kids know how to defend themselves, because there are so many external variables that might have to make them defend themselves. And me as a very young parent right now, but thinking about, you know, in the future, yes, I would definitely like to know that my kids are confident in defending themselves and know how to assess the situation, because situational awareness is important, whether it's a kid knowing when to sort of walk the other way, or that translates into adult life also.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to put my daughter into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Get those skills up. But where I wanted to go to now is, there was a pivotal moment for you that I feel would have had a really shift on your mind. I think it was 16. You had it was a car crash, was it?
Yeah. I did.
Yeah. Tell me about that, and how did that really impact, I guess, your viewpoint on life?
I was 16, and again, I wasn't a bad kid, but I left school that day in a car that my parents had purchased for me to practice on my L's. So me and my friend Basil at the time jigged school, took the car out, and we're just being absolute idiots that day. I actually remember driving through Penrith on the M4, doing like 180 in a 1986 VO Commodore, just reckless, absolutely no regard for myself, my health, people around me. But almost towards the end of the day, I wrapped myself around a telegraph pole with my friend in the car. He was okay. I was obviously okay later on, but at the time, I had a femoral fracture, so my femur fractured completely in half. It was like a biscuit snap. Broke my tibia. I had nerve damage in my left arm. Broke my wrist. It was a really long recovery, and I was 16. Like, I was a kid. So it's taught me a lot of things, because I see the scars every day on my hand. My leg always hurts because there's metal and titanium and screws inside my right leg. So it was just a very big eye opener and gave me a lot of perspective at a young age that's just stayed with me forever. I remember when we had a family dog at the time who was technically my dog, but I couldn't walk him because I couldn't get off the couch. And I used to cry because I couldn't, you know, walk out with my dog. At night, I had to piss into a water bottle because I couldn't get out of bed. And I used to piss into the bottle, and just it'd go all over myself. I'd start crying. My mum had to shower me for months. I couldn't do anything. I had like the group that come to your house and set up, you know, accessibility for toilets and those sorts of things. So for a 16-year-old, it was a lot to take in. I had to spend a term away from school, study from home. My best friend at the time stopped connecting with me because his family thought that I was a bad influence. So just a lot of things that I processed at that time. And when I look back at it now, it was definitely a hard period of my life, but it taught me a lot.
What were some of those lessons? Is there any key lessons that you take into life now?
Valuing your health, being able to walk. You know, a lot of times now when I feel like I can hear my internal thoughts about complaining that I'm sore, complaining that I don't want to go for a walk, can't be bothered, you know, taking the rubbish out or those sorts of things, I straight away think about that time of my life where all I wanted to do was just be able to walk down the road with a friend, or go kick the soccer ball around with my little brother, walk my dog with my mum and my sister and those sorts of things. So it's a time of my life that's always stayed with me. So 8th of May, that was the date.
8th
I'll
of May.
never ever forget it.
So close already.
Yeah.
God. All those little things that we take for granted, that we wake up every day, we can walk, we can run, we can walk our dogs.
Yeah, we have health. Our families have health. Our kids are healthy. All those things are so important. And I understand that we live in a city and in a time where it's very easy to lose perspective and get caught up in business and money and bills and staff and putting out fires in the business. But I do think it's important to have things that give you perspective and bring you back to all the things that we have around us that are great, that we can be grateful for. Which is why I think practicing gratitude is such an important thing. It's the reason why my wife and I, every time we have a meal together, we hold hands. And if we have friends over at our place, we hold hands with our friends or our guests. And we all say, you know, what's one thing that we're grateful for? Because just that little thing does make you realize that there's a lot of good in our life and that it's everything's okay.
So let me ask you this. What are you grateful for today?
Today, I'm grateful that I was able to wake up and enjoy breakfast with my wife and my daughter, and that I had disposable income to go to a cafe on the way here and enjoy a coffee, and that I had the flexibility to say yes to a podcast on a Thursday morning when a lot of people, are at work. So I can keep going. I'm so grateful for many things. My family come from a war-torn country, a war-torn region. I observed how hard they had to work to give us these opportunities that I now have. So the list goes on and on and on for me. I speak to my family back home quite often, and they tell me the situation there. They don't have access to their money. They don't have access to clean drinking water. So yes, I do have my own stresses in life, but ultimately everything is great when I look at it from a lens of all the things that I have around me that are good.
Yeah, gratitude is so powerful, and the fact that we get to wake up each morning and that we actually do wake up and we get to, for example, today, come here, have this conversation. I'm forever grateful that we get to do this, and life is beautiful.
Yeah,
it's all about perspective.
Definitely.
Talk to me about the immigrant mindset. Your mum, your parents shifted here.
Yeah.
When you were young, probably worked their asses off and instilled that hustle mindset into you, which then you've gone and built your business as well. How important is it that they've instilled that into you?
It's a good question, and I've sort of, as I get older, I try to shift away from letting that be my identity. That because I'm an immigrant, that's what's made me work hard. I don't feel like you need to be an immigrant or come from an immigrant family like that generation to have values of hard work. I think even if you're a parent growing up in the hills with good family background, good inheritance, you can still teach that to your kids. That starts at home. But I guess in my situation, I saw my mum and dad work really hard, and I also saw how financial pressures created conflict in our household. And for me, I've always felt like, and go back to when I was 16, I've always really wanted to squeeze the most out of every day. And if you speak to my closest friends and my family, I try to suck the most out of life every single day, because I've been close to not having the next day, like when I had my car accident. I remember the surgeon said that I was between 10 to 15 centimeters from dying.
Yeah, wow.
If I had been further backwards on that telegraph pole, it wouldn't have hit my leg, it would have hit my center of mass, so my head, my heart, and that region. So I probably wouldn't have been here. But for me, I don't think it's about hustle and grinding, because those terms also get quite straight away in the current media, and it tells young men that they shouldn't have a life, that all they need to do is work hard, and that you shouldn't sleep, and you need 3 hours of sleep. But also in saying that, if you want to build something truly special, I do think there's a period in your life where you do have to do those things and go through a really hard time and sacrifice relationships and sacrifice time out with friends and all those sorts of things. And so for me, I look at my parents and what they did. I look at my past experiences in life, and I know that I've come to a point in my life where the equation for wanting to achieve what I want to achieve comes down to consistency and hard work every single day. Does that mean I let that consistency and that hard work affect my quality of health? No. Does it change the way I can train and have time to do jiu-jitsu and go for a run and do swimming and have a sauna? Yes, because your priorities shift over time, right? But to any person who questions whether or not hard work is required, the answer is it is required. Look at any high-performing athlete, look at any successful entrepreneur. They'll tell you about all of the times that they had to completely invest themselves into that one thing to make it fruitful.
Definitely. And speaking into your parents and them working hard, they may or may not have been around as much when you were younger.
Yeah.
And now you're looking back, do you have a strong relationship with them now? Because we were speaking off air around, as kids, we don't care how much money or what you do for us. It's like how much time you spend with us. And for you, do you have a strong relationship?
Yeah, I'm good with my dad. My dad, we've spoken about it together, and when he came from the region that we came from, like a Kurdish family, Kurdish background, traditions over there, and he came to Australia, he was working as a trolley, like he was pushing trolleys at Franklin's in Auburn. I think he was working for
Franklin's, God.
Franklin's.
That's not even a brand anymore.
Right? I think he was making $4 an hour. And
Yeah,
my
wow.
dad came from a relatively affluent family by standards of back at home. And so then he started working as a cab driver in the King's Cross. King's Cross in the 90s was a time that was quite eye-opening for somebody who came from strong family values, respect for people around you, to then being a cab driver in the King's Cross. I think he saw a lot of things that made it hard for him to dissociate that when he got home. My mum, when she got here, she became pregnant with my little brother, was studying English and working at a kebab shop called Sofra in Auburn on the main road. So I remember all that stuff. So I remember how hard my parents worked. And for me, I think you know, what we were speaking about earlier, the effects of hard work on family and, you know, the sacrifices that you have to make. I think it's you can't go without having the discussion on how those things are going to impact your relationships and impact the family. And what we were speaking about before with, you know, communication being so important between relationships. So I remember how my parents worked, and that definitely gave me insight and perspective onto what opportunities I had moving forward.
Yeah, communication is the biggest thing, and as men, sometimes we lack in that area.
As people lack in that area. Yeah.
Especially when we are so focused on our business, on our purpose, and we push those other things to the side. And as I mentioned to you before, I'm personally going through that now.
Yeah.
I put so much energy into building my business, my podcast, that I've always been there for my daughter, but the relationship with my partner, I neglected.
Yeah.
And now I'm in a way paying for that because I've got to work extra hard to build that relationship again and have that communication there whilst still pursuing my purpose.
It's hard. It's not easy.
And not letting go of your health as well, because without health, you've got nothing.
Correct.
And I see you every morning, you're training basically, and health is a massive priority for you.
Correct.
How has it always been there, or was there a period where you didn't train and you lost yourself a bit?
The only time I lost myself was during my car accident.
Yeah, okay.
I've always been into sports and training, and I studied sports science at university. Prior to that, I was teaching group boxing classes. So I've always been involved in that industry. And then I got into personal training as a subcontractor. So I've always valued health and what that does for the person and what that does for our bodies and our minds. In our family, one of our key pillars is health. Not just for me, but for my wife, for our daughter, and for any of our future kids if we have them. So I know that if I look after my health, then everything else flourishes from that. I know that if I'm not eating well, that if I'm not sleeping okay, and that if I'm not exercising, then everything else starts to suffer because of that. Because I'm neglecting myself. I don't feel good about myself. My output is lower than what it normally is. And so the people that I interact with, my relationships, they all have to effectively suffer because of that. So for me, my number one pillar has always been my health. I speak for myself. Whether it's having a young child and being busy, I just shift how much training I can do, but I'm still training as often as I can. I'm still walking. I'm still trying to eat well, because I know those things are important to us in our family. Same goes for my wife. You know, I do what I can to support her so she can get back into training after we've had our daughter. So our family values, health is at the heart of that. And then to touch on what you were speaking about with, you know, being present for your partner and then trying to grow a business, it's really hard. And I also have the same difficulties that come up every single week. And for me, what I find helps and where I get some success is having open communication with my wife and explaining that, hey, I'm about to go through a busy period in the businesses, and I understand that I might not be at home as often as you'd like me to, but me doing so allows us to do X, Y, Z on the other side of that. But I still do my best to at least block out some time throughout the week. That's our family time, whether it's, you know, Tuesday, Thursday mornings, I'm there for breakfast. You know, Wednesday, Friday nights, I'm home for dinner. I'll cook dinner. And then on Saturday, Sundays, we'll spend some time together as a family. But the reality of running a business and building a brand and genuinely trying to succeed in business is that it is going to pull you left and right. And there's always going to be that discussion around, you know, hey, I'm going to be busy. I'm probably not going to be home. I'm going to leave early and come back late. But if you don't communicate it, then that's when conflict starts. So it's a push and pull. I think relationships are always a push and pull. And look, I'm 32. I've been married for 2 years. I've been with my partner for 6 years. I have a five-month-old daughter. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm a relationship expert. I'm just sharing what things that I find work for me. You asked me earlier, how's my intimacy with my wife? Even though we've got, a 5-month-old daughter, it's fantastic. I think our relationship is stronger than it ever has been because our respect, especially my respect for her, is so much higher now after witnessing her give birth and seeing her as a mother. And so I feel like if you work together with your partner, that's when the relationship can be the strongest because then they'll support you while you're supporting them.
Yes.
Is it easy? Fuck no. No.
It's not. And from you now becoming a father, how has that shifted your perspective when it comes to success?
What's success, man?
What is it to you?
What is success? What is it to me? I think health will always be my first measure of success. And to that, though, having disposable income enables health in certain ways. If you're always worrying about when the next paycheck's going to be, that's going to impact your mental health, which will then impact your physical health. But success for me is having health, which is also a very blanket term, but being able to walk, having good food in the house, having good relationships in life. And obviously financial flexibility is something that's always been important to me because I did see how that sort of, I won't say crippled, but it did impact my family growing up when we were younger. So I've never wanted that to be the case for me. And my mum, since I was a little kid, she called me a term in our language that is like the person that's always liked a bag of gold. I think I've always liked having money since I was a kid. I've never really been without money, whether it was doing criminal things at a young age to make money, like stealing and theft and those sorts of things, to working really hard as a subcontractor, to then opening the business and sleeping at the gym when I opened it, to now working from 5 a.m. in the morning until 8 p.m. at night. I value hard work, and I've also directly seen how hard work has improved my life. So I'll continue to do so. Success for me are those things. It's health first and foremost in myself and my relationships and in my family. And then it's having the freedom to do what I enjoy. For me, that's the thing I enjoy the most is being able to wake up and go, okay, today this is what I'm doing and I actually enjoy it. Is it always fun? No, it's not always fun. Running a business is probably the hardest thing that you'll ever do. And it's gonna completely suck everything out of you. You have to give it everything. And sometimes it's also at the expense of your relationships and you're spending time with your family, whether it's your daughter or your sister or your mother or your brother, saying no to friends when they want to go out, small trips to Bali, small trips to Japan, all those sorts of things. But that's what success is to me. It's my health first and foremost, and then it's having the freedom and the flexibility to do things that I enjoy.
Doing the things you want when you want with the people that you love.
Correct. But that comes at a cost. Everything comes at a cost. You pay now or you pay later, and that comes with everything. You don't want to train this morning? Don't train this morning. It's okay. You don't want to train tomorrow? You don't train this week? You never want to train again. That's fine. You pay later. In some way, you pay later. But it's also for the things that we deem good. You want to train every single day this week and invest in your health and buy the supplements and all those things. Something will give because of that.
Yeah, it's a push and pull of life. If you want one thing, you got to let go of a little thing.
Correct.
Yeah, it's hard. But as we've spoken about, it all comes down to priorities. And what are you prioritizing in this season of life? Because we go through all different seasons.
Of course.
Season of business, season of family. Like, it just depends what you want to prioritize in that moment. And for you, in general, people aren't speaking about the nights that you slept on the floor of your gym, right? People see the success, but they don't speak about what it actually takes to get there and the sacrifices. And that's why I love having these conversations with people like yourself, because it's real, it's raw, and it's honest, and it's your personal experience. And it's beautiful that we do have these conversations and showcase, okay, this is what it actually takes. But it doesn't mean that you have to fully sacrifice everything else. You can still have your pillar of health and your family and still be successful in your business.
Yes, but yeah, you have to push and pull, like you said, one over the other at different times.
Yes.
It's just the way it is. You can't have everything all at once. And what you said with people not seeing the hard side of business, it's because now social media has made it so easy for everybody to have a voice. People want to share their opinions. Keep your opinions to yourself. You can speak with authority on a topic when you've actually got some runs on the board on that topic. So if you ask me, what are some tips you give to fathers on how to be a successful father? I'm like, bro, I don't fucking know. I have a 5-month-old.
Mm-hmm.
I can only share what's working for me right now. Because there might be a dad who's got 6 kids. It's like, oh, buddy, you wait till you have your 5th one. Right? But that's just how it is. However, if you ask me, hey, Meer, as a gym operator and a gym business owner and an owner of a business, what are some tips you can give? I've got enough runs on the board to actually give you some tips that are valuable. But business is really hard, and it's very easy for people to just broadcast all their successes online and show a young generation of people that, oh, okay, it's the portrayal of this success. A lot of people just talk shit. People just fake it. So for me, whether it's my success as a coach or as a business owner, I always just let the actions speak for themselves and the results speak for themselves. It's one thing that I've always just liked to do. I don't float or broadcast successes and all these things just for the sake of it on social media. I've never liked doing that. For me, it's the success of the business, my people, myself, and over time, it just shows itself. And the people who are talking shit and people who are just faking it and selling this fake life of, quit the 9 to 5 and business is going to give you all this freedom and work on your own terms and all these things. It's not the case. It is to an extent, but it's extremely hard to get to that place where you're breaking even as a business owner, to when you can take a morning off because you've got a secondary staff to come in and fill in. It takes a long time to get there. The concept that I use, and my business partner also will use it, is eating shit, like getting really good at eating shit. And business gives you a slap of humble pie and makes you really good at doing it. Because I'll give you my own example. It took me collectively about 7 years of solo hard work where I lost relationships, I lost time, I won't say I lost, I prioritized business and my career over that. And it was only up until that probably 7-year mark where I had a small team that was growing, where I could afford to just have a morning off to do admin and go and train and not have to be in the business 7 days a week. But people never want to show you that because it's not exciting and it's not fun and it doesn't sell their online courses.
Yeah, it's social media's all highlight reels these days. But as you said, you got to be in the shit and you got to be that person that lives with an integrity of themselves. And
correct. And not everybody does that, which is okay. Because fundamentally, the people who want to live with integrity will deviate towards people who do live with integrity. And that'll be your audience.
Exactly. And it's exactly what I say to clients that come through when it comes to podcasting. A lot of people come in, they want overnight success. They want to get thousands of views and sponsorship deals all, like straight off the bat. It doesn't happen. I've been slogging for 6 years, 300 episodes. I've connected and grown so much as a person. But now finally, within these last 12 months, I'm slowly starting to get traction.
Yeah.
But it's just continuing to show up. As you said, consistency and hard work. It is the formula. That's the formula to success.
Do the thing every single day. Every single day.
And for you being a gym owner, gyms are hard. And especially in your niche of strength and conditioning.
Correct.
And for me, I actually studied strength and conditioning. Yeah. Well, a year and a half of uni. And I was like, no, this isn't for me. And I dropped out.
Good choice.
Yeah, because I used to watch all the guys in America and it looked awesome over there. But in Australia, that's a different market and it's hard to crack. And
different market.
For you to now be in the position that you are now, man, that's hats off to you.
Thank you.
And all the hard work that you've put in, because I know how hard it is and the work that it takes to get to that level. And I'm sure there was potentially moments that you're like, what am I doing? Should I quit?
Several.
Yeah. What kept you going?
I refuse to quit.
Yeah.
I refuse to quit, man. And I'll work so hard that it'll make most people sick. And it's not me like beating my chest and comparing myself to other people. It's me versus me. I like the challenge. I like the challenge of business. I find it invigorating. I find it very purposeful. And I've done it for so long, I don't know how to do anything else. The last time I received a paycheck from someone was when I was 22.
Yep.
It's 10 years ago. I did that for 8 months. And that was it. So since then, I've been doing my own thing. It's all I know how to do is do my own thing and build things. So for me, I can't go back. I don't have a plan B. There is no plan B. It's just head first, and this is me. There's times in business where I've had months where revenue's down like 25%. Like that shit hurts. We're talking like the tens of thousands where you're like, fuck man, this stings. But any business owner tells you got to smile through it, show up for your people, let them know that everything's okay, keep investing in the business when you're bleeding out of one pocket, and I enjoy it. But like I said, it's what's my alternative?
Exactly.
My business partner Vincent, in his old gym that he had, there was a bell on the wall, like a painting. And it's an ongoing sort of joke between us where the bell was, you can ring the bell at any time, as in like, that's it, I'm out. Like, I want out of here. So for me, like that bell's always hanging over your head. But there's no way I'm ringing that bell, man.
That's it.
There's no way.
They say you can ring the bell, you can quit, you can go get a normal job. But I think
there's nothing wrong with a normal job, which is another fallacy of social media. Like, 9 to 5. I don't like those terms. It's not for everybody to own a business. Just as it's not for everybody to be a high operating worker in the corporate world. That's also not for everybody. It doesn't make you better or less than the other person who's a business owner. It's just different. So for me, ringing the bell isn't about getting a normal job. It's just that I don't want that. It's not the sort of life I want. And for me, that bell doesn't really exist anymore because I enjoy business. My personality type deviates towards enjoying business. And I've done it for so long now that it's really all that I know how to do. And I'm progressively getting better at it. So it's not about better or worse. It's just different. And it's not for everyone.
Exactly. I totally agree. And as I said, like people like ourselves, business owners, entrepreneurs, we can't go back. Once we start business, it's like, it's all good to say we could go back.
Yeah.
But in our heads, we're like, we can't.
No way. Because you get good at certain things that completely don't fit, the typical work structure. I like having the autonomy to build things, to create systems, to create an environment where I get to work with people that I like. And my personality type now, I couldn't have somebody speaking over me or telling me what I can and can't say or how I should run things. I have input, but I like a horizontal environment where people are on a level playing field, like my business partner, other colleagues, where we all share ideas. So that's my input on that.
How long have you been running the Ethos for?
Ethos has been 7 years now. I have been working in the strength and conditioning space, both, sort of call it casually, because in the start it wasn't my full-time thing, for probably 10 years now. And full-time, me just working in high performance for combat athletes specifically, has been for about 4 years now.
Yeah, okay.
Where the only athlete that I work with is a combat athlete now.
Yeah.
Which is awesome because that was my dream 7, 8, 9 years ago. That's all I wanted to do. I said every day when I wake up, I just want my books to be all fighters. And here we are, and that's what it is now. And I'm also involved in another business now with my business partner, Vincent. So again, you might see the glory that comes with that, the perceived glory, all these things, but it was just what I wanted to do, and I just worked really hard for it.
Are you someone that believes in manifestation?
Yes. Yeah. Short answer, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, you saying that you had the vision, like you just wanted to work on combat sport athletes, and then now this is exactly where you are. Just having that thought process each and every day, subconsciously you manifest that over time, and it's awesome to see that it's paying off.
Manifesting is like telling yourself what the destination is. The difference between, in my opinion, the difference between actually getting to that destination is not forgetting to fill up the car on the way to the destination, which is what happens with a lot of people. We spend a lot of time going, what's your 5-year vision? What's your 10-year vision? And all these vision boards, and people do all this shit, and they do 75 hard, and it comes down to the day though.
Yep.
The next day, how are you going to do it the next day? And then the next day, and when you feel sick, when you can't call in sick, when your partner's down your throat, when business is doing shit, when COVID happens and your business gets shut down, how do you show up the next day or on the same day? And it's an accumulation of all of those daily efforts that get you to like the point where you look around and go, oh shit, I'm actually where I wanted to be 3-4 years ago. And then what's next? And then the next thing. And you apply that to your relationships as well and all the other areas of your life. So you might say, I want my relationship with my wife or my partner to look like this. This is how I want it. This is how I want us to be. So you might manifest a certain life with them. Well, it comes down to how you treat each other today. right? You can't just keep living in the future. How do you treat her today? How do you start working towards that life together? And it's obviously a back and forth thing together. It's a collective effort. So I do believe in manifestation, but I believe more in the daily efforts that get you to that point where you go, I manifested this. It's like an athlete. I work with so many athletes and I've worked with world champions. I work with the best athletes in the world.
Because you work with Tyson Pedro, don't you?
Tyson Pedro.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of other high level athletes also, and I speak to some fighters now. One of the young fighters that I coach, he messages me sometimes, and we rub off well on each other because he sees my efforts in business and I respect his efforts as an athlete. And he said, here's what's going to happen this year. He told me at the start of the year. He's like, I'm going to turn professional. I'm going to get on a winning streak. I'm going to win a regional belt in the biggest premier organization. And then I'm going to get a call up for the UFC. And then I'm going to enter the UFC. And within 3 years, I'll be top 5 in the UFC. And I'm like, okay, pretty cool. If you believe that, I believe in you. And over the years, I've seen many athletes talk the shit and not do the thing. And they don't get to where they want to get because they forget that it's the daily efforts that accumulate to get into that final place. So far, this person who's manifested these things, he's actually on path. But I see that person's daily efforts so consistent, doesn't skip sessions, eats well, looks after recovery, reads books, journals, visualizes, does everything a high-performing athlete needs to do. So in my mind, he'll probably have a good chance of living out that manifestation. But people just see how he gets to the final stage. They don't see all of the daily efforts that got him there.
Is it those daily efforts you see that make the difference between a good athlete and a great athlete?
There's an accumulation of things, but yes. Ultimately, yes. Because I've seen many great athletes, people with good genetics, fall short because of the daily efforts. I've seen many of those at the highest levels as well. Vice versa, I've seen people who aren't naturally very genetically gifted become some of the best athletes in the world.
What's the mental aspect between the difference between good to great that you've seen through athletes?
Self-belief, taking risks, and really, 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 really hard work, consistent hard work. Funny enough, those same traits carry over to business.
Yeah. It's funny when
Self-belief, like you can doubt me, I don't doubt me. I'm going to keep showing up and I'll do my best. And eventually, I will get to where I need to get to. Daily efforts, same in business, and taking risks. Business is a risk. Every single day is a risk. Most decisions you make as a business owner have a risk to reward ratio that you need to weigh up. Are we going to invest in this thing? Yeah. You obviously calculate it and you try to make the most accurate risk, but it's all a risk. Athletes are the same. Athletes will spend their whole lives, all of their money going into this sport. It's not guaranteed that they'll get into the UFC and make money. Just because you get into the UFC doesn't mean you're going to make money. And a lot of the UFC fighters will testify to that. But it's what's required if you want to get there.
I'm curious, what's your vision for Ethos?
My vision for Ethos ties into, call it a vision that I want to have collectively with business and with where I would like to see things going. And ultimately, I'd like to be involved in commercial property that can have multiple businesses that we own within one place. That would be a very nice thing that I'd like to work towards too. For me, Ethos is an established business, an established brand. We have good brand equity. People respect the brand. We're very good at what we do. We are the best at what we do, hands down, in the whole country. I will say that very proudly now. So for me, it's continuing to grow the business, refine the team, let my team know that I care about them and that I want to give them pathways to stay and grow in the business, and to ultimately have a larger premises that can help and service more athletes. But I'm not rushing that process because I've seen a lot of gyms rush that process and almost bury themselves in that process. So I'm taking it slowly. I'm making smart decisions. I try to assess the economy and where things are with money and discretionary spending and the cost of things, because gyms are very expensive, very service heavy. You need a lot of people and manpower. And a lot of the times it's not the most profitable business model. But people will tell you, you never get into a gym business because you want to be a multi-millionaire. So that's where I see Ethos.
You just mentioned a really good thing there around, you don't get into the gym business to become a multimillionaire. So then what's your purpose? What's the impact that you want to have of it?
Initially, my vision was to improve the high performance standards for combat athletes in the country. And the vision for Ethos was at the time and still is to have a global impact on combat sports. That was the vision for the combat sports side of the business, because Ethos also serves a whole nother category of athletes that are everything that are not combat sports involved. So we have some of the best basketballers, soccer players, rugby league players, NRL players that come through our doors as well. But for me, the vision was to improve high performance standards for combat athletes in the country. I can very confidently now say that we've done that, and we continue to do that every day. We genuinely lead the way for combat sports in Australia. So the vision for the future is a continuation of that. It's just to keep doing it and doing it better.
And how important is it to work with your athletes as people first, athletes second?
If you don't have a relationship with your athletes, they'll never believe what you say, and they'll never do what you want them to do. So they are just people. If you look at people differently because of status and achievements in sport, you always show that side, and it'll be unauthentic. So definitely, I always do my best to develop good relationships with my athletes, and get to know them more, get to know their why and why they're doing what they're doing. And I have honest conversations with them, and I challenge them, which is also why sometimes athletes don't like working with me, because I might be a little bit too full on, but that's okay. I'm not for everybody, and everybody isn't for me either. I know what you do is it has a big physical aspect. Do you work on the mental side of things with your athletes too? I do I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a sports psychologist. Very recently, I've actually entertained the idea of getting some further qualification and providing that to my athletes, because I do have these discussions with them, and a lot of the times they are quite impactful, but I would like to potentially have some systems around that, where I can have a repeatable system to help somebody, let's call it fine-tune their mental strategy to performance. Because I know for athletes, just as it is for business owners, but for a lot of athletes, they do everything so right, and then come to fight day or game day, the mental side of things really cripples their physical performance. So I do touch on it with my athletes, but I have been thinking about maybe further qualifying myself and creating some systems around that.
Because in a way, every time you work with athletes, it's like a little mini psychology session anyway.
It's a part of it.
Yeah.
It's a part of it. Because like I said, come fight day, there are so many psychological factors that can impact performance, for the good or for the bad. Some athletes, they love the lights. They love that environment. They rise. Other athletes, it cripples them. So they need to be able to have some skills to work on that.
That's for me, when I would go out and play footy or perform, training, I'd kill it. And then come game day, I'd let like anxiety and it cripple me, and like I'd feel fatigued and weak. And I'm like, what the hell? I can't perform at my highest.
There's like a balance of anxiety and arousal, right? So going either way on either side of the spectrum can impact your performance. You try to get athletes to be, the cognitive state to be peaking in the right area of the spectrum come game day or fight day or whatever it is.
Yeah, because the reason I bring this up is like, do you do like meditation, breath work? Like, do you incorporate that side of things?
Me personally, or me with my athletes?
You with your athletes.
I speak to them about how they can implement that into their own training.
Yeah.
And depending on what sort of training session we're doing, there'll be parts of where I talk to them about thinking about those things. But I touch on it with a lot of my athletes. The ones that I feel like are deserving and show that they might have a area of weakness there, or an area that could be improved, I'll speak to them about things like visualization, creating rituals around fight day or competition day, whether it's particular clothing that they wear, a performance playlist, things that they think about. So yeah, I touch on it.
Because I'm assuming you implement that in your own life, especially with the chaos of business and family. You need a place to come back to self and not lose your soul in that chaos.
Yeah.
Breath work, meditation is a big thing for you, or?
I don't make it a big deal of, at 5 a.m. I got to wake up and do my morning. It's because I get steered left and right. For me, there are just certain things that I always do that I find give me an opportunity to just focus on breathing. Whether it's getting in my ice bath, which is like 3 to 4 times a week, that makes me focus on a particular breathing cadence. Every night before I go to sleep, I read as much as I can of my book before I start falling asleep.
What are you reading at the moment?
At the moment, I'm reading a book. I forgot what it's called actually, but it's a series of short notes. I think it's by Ariana Huffington, and it's just essentially notes on life that you can apply on different topics. So it'll go through like, 7 ways to have better social skills, 7 ways to be organized better, 7 ways to be a better partner, those sorts of things. Prior to that, I was reading a baby related book.
Yep.
Just to learn more about babies' cognitive development, those sorts of things. And by way of driving a lot from work and businesses, I listen to a lot of podcasts and audiobooks. But yeah, I've got a bookshelf like you do at home. And sometimes I just take a book out. I've got one near my bed. And that's something I do every night just to sort of get off my phone, put my phone down, start unwinding my sympathetic system and getting into my, sleep states. But in our house, we have a whole ritual around how we do that as well. We've got, red lights at home, and we turn off blue lights, and that comes back to the whole health pillar in our household.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just started to, at night, put the phone down, journal, read a book. I'm reading The Way of the Superior Man at the moment.
Yeah, cool.
So just really putting my energy into that and into myself, really, because we do sometimes get caught just scrolling.
I definitely don't do that.
Yeah.
I definitely put my phone away at least 45 minutes before I'm getting ready to go to bed. And a lot of the times, if I am at home while my wife and my daughter are awake, that night time is, shower time. It's time with my daughter. So we have like a no screen policy at home with our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So my screen is not in front of her. She doesn't see this TV screen. She didn't see iPads. She didn't see iPhones. A parent might be looking at that right now and going, yeah, buddy, you wait till she's 1 year old, but I'll get to that when she's 1 year old.
Yeah, that's something that I'm dealing with right now.
Yeah.
I said no iPad, no phone. She can watch TV, she watches movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But still, even in that, you can see the addiction already starting to happen. Of course.
Definitely. We will do our best in our household to have our daughter spend time outdoors, doing activities that are very sensory stimulating. So things like painting, playing, building, drawing, those sorts of things. And I myself, I don't really watch TV. I've never had a Netflix account. I don't really like watching TV. I like movies. So me and my wife, when our daughter's asleep, sometimes we'll put a movie on together.
Yeah.
But in terms of cognitive development for a child, we believe that it has a negative impact on their cognitive development if they have a lot of screen time, which is shown to be the case. So that's just one of our things in our house.
You're a man of nature anyway, so I'm sure she'll be out with you all the time.
That's why we also moved to the areas that we moved to. So we've got, chickens in our house, and we've got enough of a yard space where she can kick a ball around and play in the dirt and have a little cubby house and those sorts of things. So again, it's just it deviates back to it relates back to our health pillar, and that's what we value. Is it for everybody? Probably not, but
you got to do what's best for you and your family.
Correct, and what we think is best.
Exactly. I asked you this prior to recording, but I want to bring it up here. Are you a spiritual man, a man of faith, like coming Kurdish background, and what religion is that?
Yeah, so traditionally, Kurdish people would have followed Zoroastrianism as a spirituality, which was very centered around like the cosmos and fire and water and natural elements.
The elements, yep.
By way of colonization and Arab civilization starting, we had to take on Islam. So a lot of people in that area now are Muslim. I don't deviate towards any specific religion. I did it growing up just by way of, that's what we did from where we came from. Spirituality, I feel like, is another thing that, what is spirituality? What is it to you? For me, I try to, I respect nature. I think everything comes back down to our relationship with nature, and humans, the way we evolved, we are an outdoor species, and we evolved with nature, which is why if you look at our energy states and our energy levels are so governed by things like how much sunlight we get. And obviously you can see that now that's a big trend going around of people getting their sun exposure and their vitamin D. And
earthing and all these things
because we are electrochemical organisms. So my spirituality now, first and foremost, is just being outdoors and being in nature as much as I can. And I always find that I feel better when I'm outdoors. I feel better when I am, not in a confinement in a building. So even if, you're in an office space, you can still go for a walk. You can still stand in the sun and eat your lunch there. There's so many things you can do. Do I believe in things like karma? I don't know if that's what your question is, but I feel like spirituality is different for everybody.
Yeah.
I tend to believe that if you are a good person and you genuinely try to help other people and you don't have an agenda behind your discussions with other people. So if I speak to you, I'm not speaking to you because I want to get something out of you. If I help you, it's not because I expect you to help me back in return. I just do those things because that's the sort of person I am. And funny enough, I find that over the years of my life, I've always had good impressions with people because I've always just been that way.
Yeah.
So if people want to have a phone call, they want to ask for a tip, or they want to share ideas, sure. Of course, I manage how often I do that now and who I give my energy to, but I never believe that I'm better off or better than other people. For me, that's my spiritual lens at the moment.
Do you believe in a higher power, like God?
I believe that it's a good question. I believe that people in especially Western societies, we have this idea that we are more important than what we really are, and that we have control over things more than what we actually do. And I believe that a lot of, if you do good, good will come back to you. If you do bad, bad will come back to you. The higher power that I believe in is, I suppose that we are so easily, our narratives are so easily changed by things that are not within our control. So I'm on my way home today, I get into a car accident and I'm a paraplegic. That instantly changes the trajectory of my life forever. And it's not...
Touch wood, that doesn't happen.
it's not within my control, right? And that also comes back down to why you should always just have perspective and enjoy things while you can. And I get it. It's hard to always just be in that frame when you're dealing with shit, when you're dealing with family, when you're dealing with children, when you're dealing with business, when you're dealing with finances and bills and all these things. But if you can have a few things every day that just bring you back to going, okay, I do have a loving family in my life. I do have a brother that's a good brother. I do have a friend that's a good friend. I do have food and water and a house. Then that's my lens. Do I believe in God, so to say? Again, like what is God to you? What is God to another person? Yes, I do believe in that there is a higher power. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe there's a God, there's a higher power, but I also feel like it's within us.
I agree.
It's comes from building a true relationship with self. Then you can connect to your higher self. And all this, I'm still learning and growing and trying to figure things out. But all this kind of came up for me through a psychedelic experience where I realized like we're all connected.
Yes.
We're all energy, we're all connected. I don't know if you've done psychedelics before. Yeah. What was your experience like?
What you said about we are all energy, physiologically you are right though.
Yes.
There's a lot of research coming out now, and I listened to a podcast where his name's Dr. Max, and he speaks to a lot of guests that speak about the effects of light on our like biochemistry and how humans evolve with light and the sun, and they talk about certain species that get energy from the sun, and so that like, they effectively photosynthesize from the sun. So the sun provides them with energy without them having to eat anything, right? So I feel like we are all connected in certain ways, and I definitely agree that we are connected to nature. It's why so many people deviate towards nature retreats and glamping experiences, and so many of my friends that go camping will tell you that the best sleep that they get is when they go camping and they're disconnected from their phones and they're more connected with nature and they start a fire and get more sensory stimulus. So I agree with you. I do think that we're all connected in certain ways, and what I think psychedelics does for a lot of people is it strips them from a lot of their defenses that doesn't allow them to actually see those things and appreciate those things. So it sort of just brings your guard down and it makes you appreciate nature a lot more.
Yeah, because a lot of us are walking around with multiple masks and our ego, and it brings the walls down, and it is scary for a lot of people to confront themselves, because we do live in a world where we don't spend time with ourselves. We're always on our phone, talking to people, listening to things, but we never take the time to actually sit with ourselves and build a relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's so important that we do that. And every time that I've gone through a tough period throughout my life, get back into nature. So healing. So healing.
There was a song that an artist I like. One of the lines was, when I lose perspective, I go to a place where I lose reception. Because nature brings you back down to what really matters. So I went camping with my wife, my daughter, and a friend of ours about 2 months ago. And it was a very busy period in life with our newborn and business. And I remember just sitting by a fire with my friend and my wife and my daughter. I'm like, man, this is all you need is right here. So I do think nature brings you back to what's important. And I understand that it's hard for people to get into those environments, again, because of business and stresses and all those things. But to tie this all back to spirituality, I would like to think I'm a spiritual person. And I think spirituality comes down to how you are in your day-to-day actions, being a good person, doing good by other people, not lying, not cheating, not stealing. When I say cheating, not just with your partners, but also with your friends and with yourself. You should be your own best friend. If you do not enjoy your own company, then something needs to start changing in your life.
Exactly. And if you don't have a relationship with yourself, how are you meant to have relationships with others?
I love my own company. When I get a day or a couple of hours to just do what I want to do, it's the best. It's the best. My cup refills immediately. And then that makes me a better friend, and it makes me a better business partner. It makes me a better colleague to all the people around me. So people, I don't think I could be wrong, that it's a problem with a lot of the older generations, the whole phone usage and being disconnected. But I definitely think it's an ongoing concern with younger generations that are growing up around so much digital technology and AI and iPhones and all these apps that's removing the human element from connection. So a lot of people just connect through screens now. Kids connect through screens now. But man, I think that if you were in the prior to 1995 births, you still made it to that generation that, you know, grew up making smoke bombs, and you grew up egging cars and going and, you know, just running around and riding a bike to different areas and stuff. I feel like kids now, they don't have those experiences anymore. So we might see that prevail itself more in the future generations.
Yeah, well, I hope it, in a way, swings back. Technology is always going to be there, and I think it's an amazing tool, though we are getting heavily consumed. And unfortunately, the kids are getting the most consumed in it. And do you feel like that's impacting kids going into sports like fighting and combat sports?
I can't comment on that because I don't see that side of the youth coming through the sport. But just from a scientific perspective, there is a lot of research around the effects of screen time on cognitive development. There's the research that came out around, you know, COVID time with kids disconnecting from school, like face-to-face interactions, and how that impacted their social skills and their languages and their ability to show emotional connection through things like mask wearing and all that sort of stuff. So I believe that that generation might have to show the effects for then generation after them to be like, whoa, we can't do that as well anymore. But there is that sort of middle gen that they have already been impacted by it. Yeah. But again, man, it starts at the home. If you believe that that's not the way for your kids to grow up, enforce that in the household.
Definitely. And as we start to wrap up, I want to ask you one thing. What are you most proud of? You've built the business, you got the family, but what are you truly most proud of?
What am I most proud of? I'm proud of myself. Really, I'm just proud that I'm a man of my word, and that I've helped a lot of people, and that when I say I'm going to do something, I genuinely do my best to have a crack. And I think that helps me sleep at night. I never go to night thinking that I've ripped someone off, that I've done wrong, that I didn't show up my best. Every single day I just try and show up and be the best that I can be. Some days I might fall short by my own standards, but I just try my best.
Meer, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you
for giving me your energy, and I'm super grateful for this conversation.
My pleasure. Thanks for connecting, and thanks for reaching out as well.